I never imagined my life would change when a black maid taught me the meaning of hope. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of secrets and unspoken words. I could practically hear my heart racing, drowning out the chaos of the world around me. It started with a knock at the door, soft but urgent. I opened it, and there she stood, a woman whose dark skin seemed to absorb the sunlight. Her eyes sparkled with a fierce intelligence, yet they held a sadness that wrapped around my chest tightly. She introduced herself as Lila, a maid. But I quickly realized she was more than that. My life then was a whirlwind of pain. My father's illness hung over us like a dark cloud. Hope was something I could barely remember. My mother was lost in her own world, filled with sleepless nights and tears. I felt invisible, like a ghost gliding through the halls of my own home. Lila's presence, however, brought an unusual lift to the heavy air. "Everything has a purpose," she whispered one evening, as we stood outside under a sky painted in twilight. Her voice was soothing, yet it came with an intensity that made the hair on my arms stand up. I watched her, fascinated, as she spoke. She had a way of weaving stories that felt like lightning, shocking and enlightening all at once. She shared tales of her grandmother, of resilience forged in fire, of strength found in vulnerability. Each word struck a chord within me, awakening something I thought was lost forever. As she talked, I felt the warmth of hope flickering to life inside my chest. But then came the moment that shattered everything. A knock echoed through the silence of our evening, louder this time, more insistent. I looked at Lila, her face suddenly pale, eyes wide with shock. "You must lock the door," she urged, her voice a mere whisper. Fear wrapped its icy fingers around me. I stumbled towards the entryway, dread gnawing at my insides. Who was at the door? Why was Lila so afraid? I hesitated, my trembling hands resting on the doorknob. The air felt thick, heavy with anticipation. The knock came again, more urgent this time, and I knew something was about to change forever. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The door shattered the stillness, and I swung it open, adrenaline igniting every nerve in my body. Before me stood a figure draped in shadows, his face obscured by the dim light of our porch. My pulse quickened, fear and curiosity mingling into a cocktail that left me lightheaded. "Is Lila here?" he demanded, the urgency in his voice tinged with desperation. Behind me, Lila stiffened, eyes dark with panic. "No. You shouldn't be here," she pleaded, though I could barely hear her over the blood roaring in my ears. "Lila, please. They're coming for us." His gaze switched to me, his expression softening just for an instant, as if he saw something in me that needed protecting. "You don't understand. She's in danger. You have to help her." In that moment, the room felt impossibly small, as if our lives had suddenly been pressed into the confines of an unyielding box. My mind spun, grappling with the weight of his words. Lila, the beacon of hope amidst my darkness, was in danger, but how? I stepped back, letting the door half close, a wall between me and the raw terror laced in his voice. "Why?" was all I could manage to ask. "Because she knows too much," he said in a low voice, glancing over his shoulder as if the darkness itself could come alive and consume him. "They aren't just watching her, they're coming for anyone who stands in their way." Fear coiled tighter in my chest, causing my breath to hitch. I turned to Lila, whose features were etched with a mixture of sorrow and strength. "What does this mean?" I asked, trying to ground myself in her reality. With a glance back at the intruder, she sighed. It's about my past, about things I thought were behind me. Her voice wavered, uncertainty casting a shadow over the trust we had built. But it's not just mine anymore, it concerns you, too. I never wanted to pull you into this. In my heart, a flicker of rage ignited. I had opened my life to her, invited her into my turmoil, and yet here she stood, encased in something dangerous and unfamiliar. What do you mean? I pressed, clutching at any thread of clarity. Please, can we talk somewhere else? The man urged. Lila hesitated but eventually nodded, her eyes meeting mine full of unspoken apologies and an unyielding resolve. We moved into the dimly lit kitchen, the solitude of the room amplifying my fears. She stood across from me, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as if she could shield her heart from the revelations that were about to unfold. I worked for people who didn't play by the rules, and they hurt those who crossed them. Her voice was heavy, a clattering weight that hung in the air. I left that life, and I thought it could stay in the past. But the past doesn't let go easily. The man nodded, his expression serious. We need to leave. Now. I can get you to safety. What about my family? I interjected, panic rising within me. What about my father? Your family isn't safe while she's around, he said bluntly. The harshness of his statement turned my insides to ice. They'll come for her. They might already be watching. You need to decide where your loyalties lie. I felt the words unravel my world, each syllable chiseling away at the fragile hope Lila had brought into my life. The weight of the decision felt impossible, and yet the urgency in the air pressed down on me, demanding action before it suffocated us all. Lila's hands trembled as she took a step closer, her voice trembling. Don't choose fear, please. I'll figure something out, I always do. But you need to look after yourself first. And just then, in the midst of this impossible choice, a flicker of light passed through the kitchen window, illuminating the edges of the darkness that had crept in around us. The sound of tires crunching on gravel outside filled the room with a new dread. They're here, the man whispered, fear flooding his eyes. I turned back to Lila, our eyes locking in a moment that held a lifetime of unspoken words. I don't want to choose, I choked out, an emotion clawing its way to the surface, but it was too late. The knock echoed again, this time more violently grating against the very fabric of hope we had woven together. It was no longer just about life-changing choices, it was about survival. With my heart racing, I felt my breath quicken and the ground beneath me tremble as I realized this was just the beginning of an unraveling that could shatter everything I held dear. The darkness didn't just linger at our doorstep, it had seeped into the very crevices of my mind, gnawing at my sanity. Adrenaline surged through me, urging my feet to move, yet I stood paralyzed, caught in the storm of choice and consequence. Open the door. A voice barked from the other side, thick with authority. I could feel the tremor of urgency in Lila beside me. She shot me a glance, her eyes wide, pleading for a shred of courage I was struggling to find. Don't leave me. She whispered fiercely, as though the words themselves could hold the tide back. It was an earnest appeal that tore at my heart, exposed all the vulnerability I tried to guard so carefully. The life I envisioned with her funny silences, deep conversations under soft light, laughter weaving its way through our days, it felt so fleeting, so out of reach now. They're going to hurt you, Lila. I can't let that happen, I murmured, a newfound resolve igniting within me, fueled by the sparks of our connection. Whatever happens, you keep your family safe, she insisted, her voice trembling but unwavering. Promise me. Before I could respond, the intruder stepped forward, pushing me aside as if I were nothing more than a leaf in a gust of wind. We don't have time. You need to listen. The door shuddered under another fierce knock, panic crashing over me like a tidal wave. What do we do? I gasped, desperate for a solution that felt tangible in my grasp, yet all I could see was the collapsing sanctuary we had built together. Just stick close and follow me, he urged, his tone shifting to something more frantic as he reached for Lila. You're stronger than you think. We just need to get you out. But as he turned to lead us away, I caught a glimpse of a figure lurking in the shadows outside, the silhouette unmistakably menacing. My breath hitched as recognition flooded me. It was someone I knew, someone I thought was on my side. "Wait!" I shouted, heart racing. "Is that just come on?" The urgency in his brown eyes cut off my question. With one swift motion, he shoved open the kitchen window, the sound crisp and penetrating. Lila's fingers entwined with mine, her grip strong, anchoring me as we climbed out, leaving behind the remnants of our safe haven. The chill of night air sliced through the tension, a stark contrast to the chaotic warmth of the kitchen. Before we reached the ground, a gunshot shattered the stillness, echoing ominously around us. I froze, heart pounding, as the crack of the shot ricocheted off the walls of my mind, reminding me of a reality I couldn't escape. Lila recoiled, her eyes wide with fear, instinctively hiding behind me, seeking refuge amid madness. "Move!" the man commanded, pulling Lila and me into the darkness of the garden. The rough grass bit at my ankles as we raced through the moonlit yard, shadows throwing grotesque shapes into our path. As we reached the edge of the property, I glanced back at the house that had once felt so warm, now an indifferent shell as it transformed into a potential hunting ground. Lila's breath came fast and shallow beside me, but as she stumbled, I felt the rush of panic swelling. "Keep going!" I shouted, my voice breaking on the edge of hysteria. Suddenly, a light flicked on behind us. Face a stranger illuminated by the beam of flashlights, eyes sharp with intent. The man stumbled slightly, an expression of disbelief overshadowing his urgency. "They're right behind us!" he hissed. "Where do we go?" I yelled, looking around wildly for an escape route. But shadows danced around us, the dark edges taunting my sense of direction. Through the chaos, Lila caught my gaze, her lips trembling. "We can't split up. Stick together." Her resolve shone brighter than the moon above. It was a beacon against the gathering storm, yet I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. "Keep running," the man whispered urgently, ushering us forward. "We're heading for the old barn. There's a safe spot inside. You'll be safe there." But just then, a disorienting realization struck me. With all we'd been through, my father, my family, spun in the axis of my thoughts. What if they were already caught up in this nightmare? What if they had been eaten whole by the darkness that now chased us? "Wait!" I cried, my heart racing with dread. "We need to check on my family. They might be in danger too." Lila's fingers tightened around mine, and for a moment, the world stilled, locking us in a shared vulnerability amidst the chaos. "You can't save everyone," she said, a desperate plea fighting against the hurt in her tone. "You have to choose. They'll find us if we linger." The urgency gnawed at me, but inside, a flicker of hope pulsed. "No. We'll find a way, together." We sprinted toward the barn, but dread coiled around my heart like a vengeful serpent. As we reached the shadow of its weathered frame, I heard the unmistakable sound of tires screeching, puncturing the air like a thorn in my side. A malevolent presence loomed close, and just then, a figure emerged from the trees, a familiar silhouette stepping from the night. My breath caught, realization hitting hard and unrelenting, knocking the hopes from my heart that it was him, the last person I expected, yet the one I feared most. The choice was coming to a head, and there was no mistaking it. A new darkness had approached, and my fight for Lila had suddenly turned into a fight for everything I had ever known. The air in the barn was heavy with the scent of hay and dust, an unwelcoming reminder of the isolation it held. As the heavy wooden door creaked shut behind us, I caught my breath, each thud of my heart competing with the echoing silence inside. Lila was beside me, her face pale and her wide eyes flicking towards every shadow that danced in the corner. She was scared, more than I had ever seen, but there was a fire deep within her, a shared determination that tethered us together even in our terror. "Do you think we're safe here?" she asked in a whisper, glancing at the gaps in the barn walls that allowed shadows to slip inside like secrets. I wished I could give her a solid answer, but the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on my chest. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely above a breath. My gaze drifted toward the dimly lit corner of the barn where a pile of worn-out equipment lay forgotten. "We just need to catch our breath and figure out what to do next." As I leaned against the wall, the familiarity of the barn struck me like a forgotten tune. I had spent summers here as a child, playing dress-up with my cousins, sewing tales of bravery and adventure in the safety of sunlight. Those memories felt so distant now, and they lingered like phantoms haunting the remnants of my innocence. "That we can't just sit here," Lila said, shaking off her hesitation. "We have to keep moving." Her voice was resolute, but I could hear the tremor beneath it. Okay, I nodded, trying to shake the cobwebs of fear from my mind. "What do we know about where they are now?" Before she could respond, the barn door rattled violently, phantoms of our nightmares spilling through the cracks. My heart rate accelerated, the echoes of the outside world interrupted the fragile calm we had grasped. "They're searching for us, and it won't be long before they find this place," I muttered, panic curling in my gut. "Shoo," Lila hissed, pressing her finger to her lips. "We have to think." Amidst the chaos, a small flicker of movement caught my eye near the back of the barn. A raccoon, drawn by a gust of curiosity as it rummaged through the debris. The sight was so ordinary, so mundane, I found it achingly beautiful. In that moment, the raw intensity of our fight slipped away just long enough for something gentle to seep in. "Look!" I whispered, motioning toward the creature. "Life carries on, even in darkness." Lila's gaze followed to where I pointed, and a small smile broke through her fear. "It does, doesn't it?" But just as quickly as it appeared, the moment dissipated, fractured by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching from outside. The raccoon darted off into the shadows with a nervous rustle, and the warmth of shared vulnerability faded, replaced with icy dread. "Hide, now," I urged, pulling Lila toward a stack of old crates in the corner. We squeezed ourselves into the narrow gap, heartbeats synchronizing within our fragile sanctuary. The footsteps grew heavier, dragging with the weight of intent, the sound a metronome of impending doom. My mind raced, a spinning kaleidoscope of what-ifs, images of Lila surrounded by relentless darkness, and my family possibly caught in the same nightmare. I thought of their laughter, the comfort of our dinner table, loved ones lost in the chaos created by the very people searching for us. "Please," I breathed, clutching Lila's hand tightly, "just let them be safe." My back pressed against the wooden frame, I closed my eyes, a desperate wish blending with the growling tension around us. Suddenly, the barn door burst open, splintering the tension in the air. Shadows poured in, harshly defining the men who entered, faces twisted by malice. My heart froze as a chill ran down my spine. The ringleader stepped forward, his eyes searching, calculating. "Find them," he ordered, motioning towards the corners of the barn. My breath caught in my throat, an anchor weighing me down as I strained to hear what would come next. Lila squeezed my hand so tightly I could feel her pulse, a silent reminder of our collective fear and brave resolve. The men began to scavenge the barn, every step a chilling reminder that our hope was running thin, that our refuge was rapidly becoming a trap. Just when I thought despair would claim me, I heard a muffled shout ringing through the air, a voice piercing the shadows that surrounded us. "Help! We need help!" My heart spun as I recognized its sound was unmistakable, a cry of desperation that sent shockwaves through my veins. "My brother! Daniel!" I gasped, barely muffling my voice. The realization hit like a hammer: my family was in danger. A flood of adrenaline ignited, blurring the edges of fear. Lila met my gaze, her breath hitching as urgency transformed into clarity. "We have to do something. We can't leave him." But then, from the entrance, the man's voice echoed again, words freezing my blood. "If you don't want them to suffer, come out now." Panic surged through me, a tidal wave sweeping away any remnants of rationality. I had a choice to make. My instincts screamed for escape, yet my heart fought against the bitter pull of betrayal. As Lila and I exchanged glances riddled with uncertainty, I wondered what was more important: our hope for survival or the family I left behind, caught in the suffocating embrace of darkness. I had to decide before it was too late. The sound of my brother's voice echoed in my mind, haunting me. That tone, frantic and desperate, ignited a fire in my chest I hadn't realized was still burning beneath the ashes of fear. I clenched Lila's hand, feeling the heat of our shared terror radiate between us. "We can't just leave him," I whispered, each word a heavy stone settling in my stomach. "They'll hurt him, I know it," Lila responded, her eyes darting toward the approaching shadows. "But what can we do? We have no weapons, no way to fight back." Panic seeped into her words, her voice trembling around the edges. The ringleader's gaze swept through the barn like a predator's, vulnerable prey tucked away in the maze of shadows. Every muscle in my body screamed to stand up and push through the terror clenching me, but part of me was frozen in disbelief. Would coming out from our hiding place truly make things worse? And would my brother be the cost of that choice? As my heart spiraled in chaos, I noticed an old pitchfork leaning against the barn wall. It was a remnant of simpler times, of carefree days helping my uncle with the horses. Now, it seemed like a beacon of hope, a way to protect those I loved. "Lila," I said softly, "I have an idea. But trust me," I implored, catching the flicker of fear and determination in her eyes. "If we can create a distraction, maybe we can lead them away from Daniel long enough to help him escape or at least give him a fighting chance." She hesitated, weighing the risks, but the resolve shining from her gaze told me all I needed to know. "Okay, just tell me what to do." I took a deep breath, summoning courage I was unsure I possessed. "On the count of 3, they'll make a loud noise over there." I pointed toward a pile of old barrels stacked precariously. "When they investigate, you find the pitchfork. We also can't forget to move as quietly as possible." "Follow my lead," Lila nodded resolutely, a fierce light igniting behind her fear. 1, 2, 3, I kicked the nearest barrel with all my strength, the wood groaning under the impact before tumbling to the floor with a clatter that shattered the silence like broken glass. Just as planned, the men turned their heads, unease etching their features. "Check that out." The ringleader barked, stepping toward the noise, casting Lila and me just one moment of cover. I could feel her shifting next to me as she gathered the pitchfork. I couldn't look away from her, willing my eyes to convey love and gratitude. It was our bond that tethered us to sanity amidst the chaos. With quick, silent movements, Lila slipped the pitchfork into place, her expression a mask of determination. She was ready. As one of the men stepped closer to the barrels, I felt my heart pull and twist, a reminder of my brother's call echoing like an alarm within me. "Come on," I whispered urgently. "We can't waste time." We crept from our hiding spot toward the barn door, every creak of the wooden floorboards resonating through my body, tipping me closer to terror. Just as we reached the open air, another cry pierced through the evening. "Get away from him!" A scream filled with a mother's fury, a voice unmistakably from my mom. Everything froze as if the world tilted on its axis. My breath caught even as Lila looked up at me, horror reflected in her eyes. "Daniel." It spilled from my lips, an instinctual cry bursting forth as I lunged to push through the door. I could see them now, 3 men looming over my small brother, held back by their strength while he squirmed like a wild animal desperate for freedom. "Now!" I shouted to Lila, who stood like a statue, enraptured by the scene. "We can't let them take him." I dashed forward, grabbing the pitchfork from her hands instinctively as it felt heavier than steel. The men turned at my shout, surprise flickering across their face. It was our moment, but also their reckoning. "Get away from him!" I roared, shoving the pitchfork ahead to create distance. But something shifted within me, fear had morphed into sheer desperation. If I could save Daniel, everything could change, and this nightmare, this suffocating darkness could at least crack. But the ringleader's laughter echoed, low and taunting, slicing through the air like a knife. "Brave, aren't you? But what do you think you can do against us?" As they advanced, despair crashed against my stone heart, fracturing every vocal breath. "You're ruining lives that don't belong to you," Lila shouted, stepping forward, her voice shaky but amplified with strength. The way the light caught her darkened eyes ignited something deep within me, a surge of courage that danced between us. Then I saw Ida's split second of hesitation brushed across their features. They weren't invincible. We were stronger when we stood together. We can do this. I rallied, making eye contact with Lila. Together we would face whatever else this nightmare had to throw at us, but as I turned toward Daniel, ready to charge forward, a gun cocked ominously behind me, a new player in the game of survival. You move, and it'll end him. The heat of betrayal washed over me, a realization striking deeper than any past pain. My heart sank as I turned slowly, absorbing the horror etched on Lila's face. A stranger, a silhouette now looming in the doorway, had changed everything. The stakes were unfathomably higher, the scale of desperation drawn sharp. Drop it, the newcomer commanded, venom in every syllable, and I could feel the floors of my resolve shattering beneath the weight of that command. Once again, hope seemed to slip through my fingers, extinguished like a flame in the wind. Who are you? I breathed, disbelief pouring out of me like a broken dam. This was more than I could bear, more than words could prepare me for. We might stand against the men inside, but how could we fight against the unknown? Behind me, Lila was breathless, and Daniel's face twisted with fear I wished I could take away. The darkness had grown denser, hazier, and the answers felt further beyond reach. The ringleader grinned cruelly, hands still poised over my trembling brother. Welcome to the game. You'll wish you hadn't played. Emotion clung to the air, fear settled in my throat. It was not just our lives at stake anymore, but the very pieces of our hearts tethered together. It was clear we weren't just fighting for our survival, we were fighting for hope in a world intent on tearing us apart. But hope had a cost, and in a moment as heavy as this, truth crumbled under the weight of a new, unseen darkness. Choose wisely, the stranger warned, and my heart twisted painfully as a shiver of realization swept through me. Sometimes, even hope could feel like despair. The air thickened with tension, and I could feel it vibrate against my skin. I had always considered fear a silent companion, but now it screamed in my mind, begging for an escape. Daniel's whimpering was a haunting melodian echo of innocence twisting in peril. The newcomer's shadow loomed larger than life, creating an unsettling void around us. My heart pounded, an erratic drum calling me to action, demanding I fight against the invisible forces crushing us. You don't have to do this. I pleaded, an unusual wave of calmness surprising me. Let him go. The ringleader let out a ragged laugh, clearly reveling in our torment. You still think you can negotiate? How adorable. He took a step closer to Daniel, and I felt the ground beneath me tremble as if it, too, feared the unfoldings of this moment. They'll give you what you want. I shouted, the words pouring out as an offering. Just don't hurt him. My voice cracked, the desperation tangible. The stranger shifted, and for a flicker, an emotion danced across his features. Curiosity? Skepticism? It was impossible to decipher. My eyes darted from him to my brother, the layers of our reality peeling back, exposing the raw essence of fear and love. I couldn't let this moment go, this flicker of hope. It was now or never. Please just I started, but a bark of laughter cut me short. Enough! Screamed the ringleader. He did not appreciate distractions, and the menace crackling through the air sharpened like shards of glass, cutting deeper into my resolve. I took another step forward, trembling but held together by sheer will. You can't keep doing this. People like you don't win, I said, focusing on the ringleader, casting a glance back at Lila, whose face mirrored my own turmoil. Lila's hand brushed against mine once more, consolidating our shared fears and knotted hopes into an anchor. Stay close, I whispered, as she pulled in a deep breath. Suddenly, a fierce yell broke through the chaos. Get your hands off him! What felt like 1,000 butterflies erupted in my stomach. Mom. That fierce, unwavering presence surged in the space between us and the men surrounding Daniel. A gust of strength enveloped me, fueled by the vision of Heron, unyielding force, a warrior whose heart nested quietly amidst the chaos of our lives. But the very sound of her voice seemed to ignite something volatile in the silhouette at the door. Your mom's about to learn some hard lessons then, he sneered. Just then, the shocking truth unraveled life broadside me like a runaway train. No longer were we fighting for survival alone. The battle had broadened, pulling in our family as unsuspecting players in a game we never wanted to join. Let him go. She cried again, stepping into full view. The swirls of bravery and fury in her voice merged seamlessly, a hymn of defiance against the tide of despair. But before I could marvel at her, the ringleader stepped back, his grip tight around Daniel's collar, the reckless energy electric. You want your son? Come take him. His laughter wasn't mirthful but a harbinger of dread. Daniel. Mom's voice shattered the surrounding walls of chaos, ringing with a sense of urgency that compelled me to act. In one sweeping motion, I turned to Lila, determination etched on my features. We can end this. Together. Well, break through. With those words imbued with newfound strength, I lunged forward. A fervent sense of unity coursed through me. Hope wasn't a single entity but a composite of unyielding bonds. Lila chased alongside me, and together, we dodged the chaos, hearts aligning for the impending clash. The onset of confrontation exploded with an intensity one couldn't have prepared for. As I reached the ringleader, the threat of violence crackled like thunder in a storm. I could sense Lila just beside me, our bond manifesting in a heartbeat that synchronized in perfect unity. But as I raised the pitchfork, hell-bent on rescuing my brother, the unexpected stranger lunged forward. Time seemed to slow as he thrust a hand seemingly at the ringleader. Before I could process what was happening, the rush of motion collided in a frenzy of bodies. As I twisted with surprise, the world shifted again. A sudden flash of pain in my side sent shockwaves through me, melting into the fabric of confusion. I stumbled back, caught between disbelief and horror, as I met Lilith's eyes, her own shock mirrored in the depths of despair. The ringleader's laugh echoed once more, now coated in a chilling, triumphant melody. Didn't I tell you? Nobody wins here. I gasped, clutching the side where the new pain radiated. Something cold and menacing twisted in my gut. The reality fractured like glass, and I felt myself slipping into a void that threatened to swallow me whole, an abyss of uncertainty widening beneath my feet. Daniel's frightened face twisted into confusion as he called for me, and every fiber of my being reached out for him. This battle wasn't just for our lives, but for our very souls drenched in the essence of love and hope. Yet each second spun through time with relentless cruelty, the stakes climbed higher, and with it, the weight of unexpected revelations loomed overhead. Identify your choices carefully, the stranger warned, a hint of satisfaction etched across his inscrutable face. In that moment, I knew the truth was never what it appeared to be, and the battle had only begun. The smell of dust and desperation filled the air, mingling with the metallic sting of my own blood. As I staggered back, the world around me blurred. The faces of those I held dear melted into an indistinguishable haze. Cries for Daniel pushed past my lips, slipping out in desperation, raw and vulnerable. The pain rippling through my side felt like some cruel prank designed by fate, reminding me sharply of my frailty. Don't you dare give up. Lilith's voice cut through the fog, urgent and fierce. She rushed to my side, her fingers wrapping around the wound. The warmth of her touch contrasted sharply with the cold fear that numbed my senses. We need to help him. Focus. What can we do? I barely managed to murmur, my breath coming shallow and quick. I looked over at Daniel, helpless in the grasp of the ringleader, who watched with twisted satisfaction, his gaze dancing between us with the amusement of a puppeteer relishing the struggle of his marionettes. Stay strong. Just hold on. Lila urged, her voice trembling but resolute. Surprisingly, a flicker of strength ignited within me as I took in her fierce determination, pushing back the weight of despair that threatened to crush us. From the corner of my eye, I caught a fleeting moment the mysterious stranger, seemingly an ally yet an enigma, moved with fluid grace. Even in the chaos, he maintained an air of calm that was disconcertingly reassuring. He met my gaze, and in it, I saw a complex tapestry of pain and hope. We can't give in to fear. Not now, he murmured, as if seeing through the veil of panic that wrapped around me. My heart pounded in rhythm with Lilith's, a steady drumbeat reminding me of the fight still coursing through our veins. I inhaled sharply, the air burning my lungs, and then uttered words I didn't entirely believe. "We will get him back." Together, with those words trailing behind, I stumbled forward, fueled by something other than strength, an undeniable instinct to protect. I could see Mom, her face twisted in anguish and fury as she hurled herself toward the ringleader. "Let my son go." Her voice dripped with a fierceness I had always admired and now desperately wished to emulate. As she approached, I cried out, "Mom, no. Stay back." But the urgency in her heart overpowered all caution. In that instant, time seemed to hang suspended, as if the universe itself reeled at the impending confrontation. The ringleader's sneer deepened, as if the unfolding chaos delighted him. "You want him? Then come and take him, just like your daughter here tried." He tightened his grip on Daniel, who visibly trembled, his wide eyes searching for solace amidst the growing storm. Suddenly, a commotion at the door grabbed everyone's attention. A frail woman, her features hidden behind a veil of gray hair and dust, appeared, her hands gripping an old broom. "Please. I live here. Put him down," she cried, her voice quaking but filled with insane courage. For a moment, the ringleader hesitated, confused by this unexpected intrusion, his expression shifting uncomfortably. "Who are you to tell me what to do?" The old woman took a tentative step forward, indifferent to the danger that hung in the air. "I'm just a maid." "But you're nothing more than a coward preying on the weak." Her voice echoed through the room, and something shifted. I could scarcely process what was happening. The noble act of a woman who had dedicated her life to cleaning up after people, now standing fearless before the embodiment of evil. There was a fierce light in her eyes that resonated with the strength I so desperately needed. "Leave them alone," she implored, her tone steady, filled with a grace I wished I could summon. "What you're doing here is unforgivable." The ringleader's sneer faltered, and for the briefest moment, his confidence wavered, allowing a crack of uncertainty to seep through. Lila squeezed my arm, and I felt a sliver of hope stir within me. "Now," she whispered urgently, and we moved together, blending with the chaotic energy of desperation. Before we could reach our brother, the ringleader had regained his composure, a vibrant malevolence swirling back into his presence. "Little old maid thinks she can stand up to me?" he jeered, turning his attentions back to Daniel, who was visibly shaking in fear. I couldn't falter now. I tugged at Lila's hand, pulling us closer, aligning our combined strength. "We need to distract him." On three, Lila responded, her eyes gleaming with a fierce resolve. 1, 2, 3. We launched ourselves forward in unison, an act driven by sheer will rather than tangible confidence. As the chaos erupted again, a low growl of rage broke from our opposing factions, a cacophony of bodies tangling in an unpredictable dance. Amidst the clamor of chaos, the old woman's voice rose above it, a battle cry filled with defiance. "They fight for love, you fight for nothing." In that moment of chaos, when everything felt as if it could shatter into a million pieces, I glimpsed the ringleader's face contorting in rage, but my focus was on Daniel. I saw how small he looked even from across the room, how terrified his expression twisted with innocence, and I realized this fight was not just for survival. It was a fight for his future, for the light he still held within, and just like that, through the haze of uncertainty and pain, an epiphany washed over me. Sometimes hope isn't found in victory, but in the courage to stand and face the darkness. As I pushed forward, I could feel the weight of our united hearts against my chest, an anthem of resilience echoing wildly through a space where despair loomed so fiercely. Yet amid our rallying cry, another revelation struck, a flicker of movement from the corner, an unexpected ally. The stranger, now more entwined in our desperate struggle, intertwined his fate with ours. In that moment, I realized something even more terrifying. It was not just Daniel's life hanging in the balance, but the very fabric of our family's existence woven together in threads of love and chaos. Just then, the ringleader struck. It was as though time slipped through our fingers, and the past loomed high above us like an impending storm ready to unleash its fury. As the ringleader's fist came crashing down, my body reacted before my mind could process what was happening. I lunged forward, arms outstretched to shield Daniel from the raging cyclone of rage and madness. Time slowed as I felt the rush of air, the crack of impact, but no pain registered. Instead, an enigmatic sensation enveloped me. I turned just in time to see the old woman stretch out her arms like a protective barrier, her frail body absorbing the blow meant for Daniel. No. I screamed, my heart splintering as she fell to the ground, the broom slipping from her fingers. Dread clawed at my chest as I looked dejectedly at the old woman, now crumpled on the floor. Let her go. Mom's voice escalated into a primal roar. The ringleader glanced down at the woman, perplexed by this twist of fate. For a fleeting moment, I witnessed uncertainty flicker across his face, and it ignited a fragile spark of hope deep inside me. Lila tightened her grip around my arm. We can't leave her. Tears glimmered in her eyes, the rage morphing into a heartbroken determination mirrored within my own. Amidst the fear and debris of shattered lives, I could feel the solid thread of our familial bond weaving us together, promising strength even when despair surrounded us. Get Daniel, I said urgently, my voice a mere whisper in the cacophony of the room. As Lila hesitated, teetering between two choices, I pushed against the suffocating darkness urging me to retreat. Well, get her, but we can't let him take Daniel. Not again. With a fierce nod, Lila turned and sprinted toward our brother. I felt a gravity pulling me down, an emotional anchor tethering me to the woman who had shown us all a glimpse of courage. I knelt beside her, my trembling fingers brushing against her frail wrist. Despite the chaos, I could feel a flicker of warmth still coursing through her, a connection deep and profound. Stay with me, I urged, my voice thick as I tried to pull her back from the edges of consciousness. You're not alone. We're here. Please. As I spoke, a spark ignited her gaze, a flicker of recognition that seemed to breathe life back into her spirit. Child, she murmured softly, her voice barely audible. You fight harder than any knight I've ever seen. Don't let fear steal your courage. Her words, laced with ancient wisdom, struck a chord deep within me, unraveling the threads of my uncertainty. Yet the ringleader's menacing laugh sliced through our moment. Sweet old lady thinks she can save her kin? Pathetic. He kicked the broom aside, taking a step closer to Daniel, whose wide eyes reflected the horror unfolding before him. Finding strength in the old woman's words, I clenched my fists, imagining the weight of the love we shared. Enough! I shouted, standing to my feet, my heart igniting with the ferocity of a wildfire. This time, my fear transformed into a battle cry for family, for hope, for those who refuse to be crushed beneath the weight of despair. Lila. We need to. Before I could finish, the ringleader lunged, and without thinking, I threw myself between him and Daniel, adrenaline surging through me. My instincts kicked in, guiding me to the only potential weapon nearby, the fallen broom. I grasped it tightly, channeling every ounce of determination into a makeshift sword. Step back, the ringleader's amusement flickered, morphing into surprise at my unexpected defiance. You think you can stop me with that? You have no idea what I'm capable of. He spat out a breath of malice, advancing toward me. I couldn't falter now. The warmth of the old woman's words drifted into me. I will not let fear win. I will not let you take anyone from me again. With that resolve, I swung the broom with all my strength, sending it crashing against his shoulder. It was hardly a blow of a warrior, but it broke the chain of intimidation that had kept us paralyzed. The ringleader stumbled back, jaw slack, astonished by my audacity. Yes. Lila cheered from a distance, her voice buoyant amidst the chaos. I could see her struggling to shield Daniel, frantically trying to snatch him away from the ringleader's tightening grip. Their bond was a tether of love that echoed the same tenacity infusing me. Suddenly, the room filled with the realization that we were not alone. The mysterious stranger moved with precision through the gathering throng, his presence a steady force amidst the chaos. You're stronger than you realize, he murmured, his gaze locking with mine as he stepped beside me. Together, and so we faced the ringleader as a united front. The air hummed with the electricity of our shared resolve, igniting a hope that seemed almost tangible. But as I met the ringleader's gaze, a flicker of malevolence flashed across his face, and in that moment, a sinister smirk spread wide. "You think you're strong together?" he mocked, and the shadows around him seemed to swirl like smoke before a flame. "Let's see just how fragile love can be when darkness truly descends," and with those words, everything shifted. The ground trembled beneath us as the walls of the building seemed to pulse, the very fabric of our reality threatening to snap. In a rush of dread, I felt the world constrict around us, drawing closer as if it intended to ensnare us in its claws. "Run!" I shouted, terror gripping my heart as the air thickened with the essence of impending disaster. But as I turned to flee, my pulse quickened further when I realized Daniel was no longer beside Lila. In that split second, I caught a glimpse of him being pulled deeper into the shadows, the ringleader's grip tightening like a vice around our small beacon of light. I screamed, reaching for him, feeling the chasm between us yawn wide. The old woman grasped my hand with surprising strength, her voice steady in the storm. "You have to fight, child. Don't give in." But it sparked an all-consuming fear I couldn't shake. What if I failed? What if we'd lost him to the darkness forever? The ringleader's laughter reverberated around the room as he vanished into shadow with Daniel in tow. My heart froze, a painful knowledge sinking in. Our struggle was far from over, and the journey ahead was marred by uncertainty and the weight of our fears. "No!" I whispered, helplessness pooling at my feet as I turned to the others, witnesses to this new tide of despair. In that desperate moment, I realized fate held far more twists than I had ever anticipated, and our intertwined destinies would once again challenge the very essence of who we were. The remaining echoes of the ringleader's laughter clung to my ears, a taunting reminder of the dark void that swallowed Daniel. I stood tethered between an urge to chase down the shadows and the weight of the old woman's grip, an anchor in the shifting storm around us. "Not like this," I breathed, a sudden desperation clawing at my insides. "We can't lose him. Keep your head, child," she urged, her gaze sharp despite the frailty of her body. "We will find him. But not if we let fear consume us." There was strength in her words, an unyielding will that pulsed through me. From behind, Lila rushed forward, her face etched with fury and anguish. "He took him!" she cried, fighting panic, her voice ringing through the chaos that surrounded us. "We must go after him." Just as I was about to respond, the stranger, our unexpected ally, appeared beside us. "The ringleader thrives on fear. We need to regain our composure, or we'll be lost to him entirely." His calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to our disarray. It was oddly comforting, a beacon as we faltered. As the shadows flickered ominously, I felt the warmth of the old woman's hand slipping away, her body sagging against the floor. "Fight!" she whispered again, her voice fading. "Believe in the love that binds you, don't leave us." My voice cracked as I grasped her arm, panic rooting me to this moment. "Hold on to your brother. His essence is woven with yours. Don't let the dark tear you apart," she breathed, her gaze steady and fervent. In a rush, I understood the battle we faced was more than physical. It was woven into the very fabric of our souls. The old woman's strength pulsed within me, intertwining with the love I felt for my brother, my family. It ignited something dormant within, hope, fierce and unyielding. "We will get him back," I said, finding conviction in my resolve. Together. As we forged a united front, the stranger guided us to the periphery of the room where the darkness thickened, tendrils of it curling and lashing like angry serpents. "This is where we take a stand. We push back against the fear," he instructed, setting an unwavering gaze on both me and Lila. With a shared glance, Lila clenched her fists. "What do we do? We can't just wait here, let's channel our love," the man suggested quietly. "Close your eyes." With hesitation, I squeezed Lila's hand tightly as we shut our eyes, focusing on the connection we had as siblings, the fragile thread of love that persisted despite the impending threat. Memories soared laughing at birthdays, late-night whispers, making promises woven in dreams. I felt the energy buzzing in the air, a sweet conviction flowing through me, bathing the darkness in luminescence. Now, visualize your brother, the stranger continued softly. Picture him safe, surrounded by love. Reach for him. With every heartbeat, I felt Daniel, his laughter, the warmth of his hugs, the brave spirit that resonated within him. It anchored us to a reality that felt overshadowed by fear yet remained unyielding in its essence. The air crackled, pulling against the shadows with a vibrancy I had never experienced before. Open your eyes. The stranger commanded resolutely. As I did, the world around us had changed. Instead of a menacing darkness, tendrils of light twisted and turned, swirling through the air, illuminating the space with a breathtaking brilliance. But our bubble of hope shattered as I caught sight of the ringleader standing at the threshold, dragging a wide-eyed Daniel behind him. Do you really think this will save you? He mocked, flinging Daniel forward like a rag doll. Daniel! Lilith's voice shattered the fragile atmosphere, and I rushed forward, my heart racing with apprehension. But in that moment, as Daniel hit the ground, his gaze darted back toward the ringleader, and a sudden realization swept through me. He was afraid. No, no, no. What now? Lila cried, her voice raw with despair. Suddenly, an unexpected flicker of surprise crossed the ringleader's face, his bravado dimming. He stepped back, confusion battling the anger lining his features. Why aren't you terrified? His question hung in the air. Heavy and taut, vibrating with uncertainty. Because we love him, I shouted, just as the surge of light erupted from our connection, illuminating the corners of the room. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in anguish, unraveling their grasp on our reality, but then, in an unexpected twist, the ringleader's expression morphed into something primal. You think this is over? The true darkness is yet to come. As the light surged, the ringleader twisted his hands, feeling the fabric of our connection dissolve before my eyes. My heart lurched in response, panic swelling as shadows writhed back to life. It was as if he had summoned an abyss deeper and darker than what we faced before. Get ready. The stranger called out, his voice piercing through the erratic storm brewing around us. In that moment, as I held Daniel's pleading gaze and felt the tremor beneath our feet, an icy realization hit me with ultimate clarity. This battle had only just begun, and our fight against the encroaching shadows threatened to plunge us into the abyss, where love and darkness danced perilously close yet again. Stand closer. I shouted, clutching Lila's hand and pulling Daniel into our makeshift circle. Together. But as I looked back, uncertainty brewed deeper within me, knowing our love might not be enough to pierce the veil of darkness, gathering a chilling omen, whispering truths that were far from over, truths I couldn't bear to confront. The roar of shadows shrouded us, but even among the chaos, hope flickered like embers desperately fighting against the wind. I held on to Lila and Daniel, threading our fingers together, an unbreakable bond that served as a beacon against the encroaching darkness. Hold tight. I shouted, feeling the weight of the ringleader's cold gaze gouging deep into our defiance. He lunged forward, but the stranger was there fast, unwavering, stepping between us like a shield. You won't have them, he said, his voice steady, yet the menace in the air was palpable, vibrating through the very space around us. Children and their foolish bravery, the ringleader mocked, but the ground beneath him seemed to tremble as if echoing contrary thoughts. This will be your undoing. He laughed, a sound painted thick with malice, but it felt hollow, and in that hollow laughter, I found a fragment of courage. We had borne the burden of fear long enough, the time for reclaiming our power had arrived. The shadows writhed in response to my resolve. No more. I yelled, my heart pushing against the boundaries established by despair. You can't take him away from us. The ground shifted, shadows curling like serpents around us, urging us to surrender to their comfort. Yet, sensing my brother's trembling frame next to me, I siphoned every ounce of love we felt, every heartbeat spent in laughter and pain, and threw those memories into the abyss. I refused to let fear define us. In that moment, the energy surged, iridescent light blossomed from our clasped hands, weaving a bridge into the darkness, fracturing the suffocating weight of despair that loomed around us. The ringleader stumbled, confusion etching his dark features, as the shadows recoiled from the warmth emanating from our bond. "I feel it," Lila whispered, her eyes sparkling with unshed tears. "We're overpowering it." We braced ourselves as together we pushed against the tide of darkness. The shadows thrashed, but they could not encroach upon the love pooling between us, that sacred sanctuary we had forged through struggle and unity. "This is our light," I shouted, embodying the very essence of our shared existence, as we channeled everything into the pulse of love growing fierce and wild, illuminating the encroaching darkness. In that blinding radiance, I glimpsed Daniel's wide eyes shining with wonder instead of fear, and a fearless clarity crystallized within me. Our strength had always been our love, and it was time to relinquish the power the darkness had claimed. "We have to set him free," I urged, nodding to the stranger. Together, as we summoned our collective might, the ringleader's expression warped into rage, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "You won't win," he spat, but behind us, Daniel's small body began to shimmer, the light wrapping around him like a protective cocoon. Unyielding warmth surrounded him, and he stepped closer to us, eyes fierce with familiarity. "Stand together," the stranger shouted, igniting our connection, and in that second, the pulse of our love surged forward, a shockwave crashing against the dark with unparalleled force. The shadows disintegrated, dissolving into whispers on the wind, vanishing like tendrils of smoke before the fire we ignited. In that heartbeat of victory, the ringleader's mask shattered, raw terror twisting his features. With a final, desperate cry, he was consumed by the light, a flash that rippled through the air, illuminating everything around us, including all the love we had fought to protect. The scene around us transformed. The barn dissipated, replaced by radiant fields, sunlight shimmering through the leaves of blooming trees, a stark contrast to the barren shadows we had fought against. And in my heart, a warmth bloomed, radiating the essence of our love, lifting us from the darkness. "We did it," Lila breathed out in wonder, enveloping Daniel in her arms. I lost it, tears streamed down my face, fueled by the realization that our bond had not only survived, it had thrived. With my heart still racing, I wrapped my arms around both of them, pulling them close. "We're safe now," I whispered. Yet in truth, it felt more than safety, it felt like home, beautiful, untouched. The past would never fade, but it had transformed into something we could cherish, a tapestry woven with struggles but drenched in love and acceptance. As we stood there, sunlight cascading down upon our faces, I knew our lives would be forever changed, but we would face the future armed with hope and unwavering faith in each other. In that moment of profound clarity, I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, finally understanding that true strength lies not just in surviving trials, but in holding fast to the ones we love. And as I turned my gaze toward the horizon, I whispered the words that would resonate through my soul forever: "Love is the light that guides us home."